tortured people in the name of God, not in secret dungeons hidden from the world, not in distant lands far from civilization, but in the very heart of Europe, in cities filled with churches, in places where bells rang for prayer and for judgment. This was the Inquisition, and for those who lived through it, fear became a part of everyday life. Because in this world, your greatest enemy was not a soldier, it was suspicion. All it took was a whisper, a neighbor, a stranger, even a friend. One accusation was enough. You didn't need proof. You didn't need evidence. You only needed to be suspected. And once your name was spoken, your life was no longer yours. In medieval Europe, religion was not just belief, it was law. It was identity. It was the foundation of society itself. To question it was to question everything. And that was something the church would not allow, because unity meant power, and doubt was dangerous. So they created a system designed not just to punish, but to control. The Inquisition was not a single event. It was a process, organized, structured, relentless. It spread across regions, from southern France to Spain to Italy. And wherever it reached, fear followed. People began to watch what they said, what they believed, even what they thought, because the line between innocence and guilt had disappeared. And once you were accused, there was almost no escape. You could deny it, you could beg, you could swear your loyalty, but none of it mattered. Because the system was not built to find truth, it was built to confirm guilt. Trials were held behind closed doors, no public audience, no fair defense. The accused often didn't even know who had accused them, or what exactly they were accused of. It was a shadow system, invisible, yet powerful. Interrogators believed they were doing something righteous. They saw themselves as protectors of faith, guardians of truth. But what they were really protecting was control. Because fear is the strongest form of control. And the Inquisition mastered it. People disappeared overnight, taken from their homes without warning. Families left behind with no answers, no explanation, no closure. One moment someone was there. The next, they were gone. Dragged into cold stone buildings, into rooms where time seemed to stop. Where silence was broken only by footsteps and distant screams. Inside these walls, hope did not exist. Days blurred into nights, and nights into endless waiting. Waiting for questions, waiting for judgment, waiting for something that never came. Because the goal was not justice. The goal was confession. And confession could be forced. Slowly, patiently, relentlessly. The human mind can endure a lot. But isolation, uncertainty, fear of the unknown, these break something deeper. Something invisible. And once that breaks, the rest follows. People began to confess. Not because they were guilty, but because they could not endure it anymore. Some admitted to crimes they didn't understand. Others accused people they loved. Because in that moment, survival mattered more than truth. And the system continued to grow stronger. Because every confession created new accusations. And every accusation created new victims. It was a cycle, endless, unstoppable. And the most terrifying part, many believed it was justified. That it was necessary. That it was the will of God. But beneath all of that, beneath the prayers, the rituals, the authority, there was something else. Something far more human. Fear, control, and a system that had learned how to use both. And this was only the beginning. At first, it didn't look like torture. There were no flames, no screams, no visible pain, just questions. Simple questions. What do you believe? Who do you speak with? Have you ever doubted? The interrogators spoke calmly, almost gently, but every word was a trap. Because they weren't looking for answers, they were looking for contradictions. And once they found one, everything changed. The room grew colder, the tone shifted, and the real process began. Because in the eyes of the Inquisition, silence meant resistance, and resistance had to be broken. They called it persuasion, but what followed was something far darker. The first step was isolation. Days, sometimes weeks, alone. No light, no sound, no sense of time, only your thoughts. And slowly,
those thoughts began to turn against you. Doubt crept in, fear grew stronger, and the mind began to weaken. Because humans are not built for endless silence. We are not built for uncertainty. And the Inquisition understood this perfectly. They knew that before the body breaks, the mind does. And once the mind breaks, confession becomes inevitable. But if isolation wasn't enough, they moved to the next stage. The threat. Not always spoken directly, but always present. Tools placed within sight. Chains, ropes, strange wooden structures. Not used yet, but visible. A warning, a promise of what could come next. And often, that was enough. Because fear of pain can be more powerful than pain itself. But not everyone broke so easily. Some resisted. Some stayed silent. And for them, the methods became physical. The body was stretched, pulled beyond its limits. Joints strained, muscles torn. Pain that started slowly, and then became unbearable. There were devices designed for one purpose. Not to kill, but to prolong suffering. Because a quick death was not the goal. Confession was. Every scream, every moment of pain, was meant to push one thing. Admit it. Confess. Say what we want to hear. And eventually, many did. Not because it was true, but because it was the only way to make it stop. And once a confession was given, it didn't end there. Names were demanded. Who else? Who helped you? Who believes the same? And under that pressure, people spoke. They named friends, neighbors, even family. Not out of hatred, but out of desperation. Because in that moment, truth no longer mattered. Only survival did. And so the cycle continued. One confession created another. One victim led to 10 more. Entire communities began to collapse under suspicion. No one trusted anyone. A simple conversation could become evidence. A private thought, a death sentence. And the most disturbing part, these methods were not hidden. They were known, whispered about, feared, but rarely questioned. Because questioning meant risk. And risk meant becoming the next target. The Inquisition didn't just punish individuals. It reshaped society. It taught people to fear each other, to stay silent, to obey. Because stepping outside the line, even slightly, could lead to unimaginable consequences. And as the system grew stronger, its reach expanded. It became more organized, more efficient, more ruthless. Because now, it didn't just rely on force. It relied on fear. And fear had already done most of the work. By the time someone entered those chambers, they were already broken. And all that remained was to make it official. A confession, a signature, a name added to the growing list. And once that happened, there was no turning back. Because the Inquisition did not forgive, it did not forget, and it never stopped.
Confession was never the end. It was only the beginning. Because once a person admitted guilt, the system moved forward, not toward forgiveness, but toward judgment. And that judgment was rarely merciful. After the interrogation came the sentence. Public, formal, final. People were gathered in large squares. Crowds filled the streets. Not because they wanted to be there, but because they had to witness it. This was part of the process. A message, a warning. This is what happens if you step out of line. The condemned were brought out slowly. Some weak, some barely able to walk, others completely broken. Their faces told stories no one dared to speak about. Fear, pain, exhaustion, and something deeper, something empty. Because whatever they had been before was gone. Clothes marked them as guilty. Symbols of shame placed on their bodies. So everyone could see. So everyone could remember. And as the crowd watched, the final declarations were read. Their crimes, their confessions, their sins. But the truth no longer mattered. Because the outcome had already been decided. Some were sentenced to imprisonment. Locked away for the rest of their lives, hidden from the world, forgotten. But others faced something far worse. Execution. And it was not quiet. It was not hidden. It was public, deliberate, designed to be seen. Fires were prepared, wood stacked high, bound bodies placed at the center. And as the flames were lit, there was no escape. Smoke filled the air. Cries echoed through the crowd.
Some turned away, others watched in silence. Because in that moment, everyone understood something. This was not just punishment. This was control. The fear spread further than the fire itself. It reached into homes, into thoughts, into everyday life. Because once you see something like that, you never forget it. And that was exactly the point. The Inquisition did not rely only on torture, or trials, or execution. It relied on memory, on fear that stayed with people long after the flames were gone. Parents warned their children. Neighbors avoided conversations. People stopped questioning, stopped thinking, stopped speaking, because survival meant silence. And silence became normal. Years passed, decades, and the system continued, expanding, adapting, becoming part of the structure of society. It was no longer something unusual. It was expected, accepted, even defended. Because when fear becomes part of life, it stops feeling like fear. It feels like reality. But history remembers. Not just the power, not just the authority, but the cost. Thousands of lives lost, countless stories erased, truth buried beneath forced confessions, and a system that showed something dangerous. That when belief is used as a weapon, it can justify anything, even cruelty, even destruction, even the suffering of innocent people. The Inquisition did not begin as pure evil. It began as an idea, an attempt to protect faith. But over time, that idea changed. It twisted, it grew, until it became something unrecognizable, something far darker. And in the end, it left behind a lesson, a warning, that power, when combined with fear, can turn even the strongest beliefs into something dangerous. And that sometimes, the greatest threat to humanity is not war, not disease, but the moment when people believe they are right, no matter the cost.